All right, so here's some takeaways from the Jussie Smollett hoax, and I hope I can offer you a different perspective than I've heard out there, and I think I can. I wrote a column on this just about a week ago, but I think the Jussie Smollett hoax speaks to a larger narrative of what the left is trying to do and willing to do in order to keep Americans divided, or divide Americans even further than we already are. So I think we have to look at the Jussie Smollett case. I think we have to look at political correctness. I think we have to look at, in larger terms, of how the media wanted this story to be true, the Democratic Party wanted this story to be true, and also what it says about racism in America today. So let's start with political correctness. Okay, I think instinctively, most people, whether you were black, white, Republican, Democrat, Latino, Libertarian, I think most Americans instinctively knew that there was something fishy about Jussie Smollett's story. It just didn't add up. It was almost too perfect of an attack. And then there was no video of it, so it was his word and us having to wait out the details and all this kind of stuff. But and then we have to say thank God that there was no video, because God forbid, can you imagine the racial divisiveness and perhaps race riots that would have broken out had people seen video believing that Trump supporters were attacking a black gay man in America? Listen, Jussie Smollett, to pull off something like this, the guy is just not a good guy. He's sick and twisted, and he needs help. And that's regardless of what party affiliation. It's obvious the guy is sick, sick and twisted. But let's go back to the media wanted this story to be true. Why did the media want this story to be true? Why was it that talking heads on CNN, MSNBC were going for the gusto without evidence, without facts, without waiting out the story? Why did they jump to conclusions so quickly? The media wanted this story to be true. They wanted to use this narrative against President Trump. Why is that? I think they feel guilty. I think they're kicking themselves in the foot. Let me explain why. Recall back in 2016 when President Trump was running for office, remember all of the media attention that he was getting. I mean, Media Research Center said he was getting approximately 16 times more coverage than all of the other GOP candidates in the field combined. And you got to give credit to President Trump. I mean, listen, the guy was what they call ratings gold. He was a good candidate. He was a fun candidate. Whether it was CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, talk radio, you mention his name, your ratings would go up. People wanted to hear about this guy. But the left thought that they would give him all this media attention. They would usher him in to win or help him win the GOP primary. And they thought he would be an easy candidate for Hillary Clinton to beat. Well, that didn't happen. Obviously, Hillary lost. He won, and I think now they just want revenge. They're kicking themselves in the foot, or they want revenge simply because they're like, man, we helped get him elected. Now we're willing to do any and everything to make sure he loses in 2020, or we can possibly get him kicked out before. And I really think that's what we're witnessing. I really think it's as simple as that. These guys are mad that they played a part in getting President Trump elected. Democrats wanted this story to be true. Democrats wanted this story to be true because if they have no victims, they don't get any votes. Ask yourself, seriously, what are their solutions to solving the nation's problems? The Green New Deal? I mean, look at Ocasio-Cortez. She's already scared Amazon out of New York City. A loss of 25,000 jobs, $4 billion in wages and salaries, $12 billion in tax revenue and economic activity that would have played a part or gone to New York City. She's destroyed that. But that's what the Democrats have to do. Her Green New Deal, the whole socialism deal, it would destroy the middle class. And they have to, because they have to keep the poor and the rich mad at each other. So therefore, the poor will always want to champion in the White House or won a champion in Congress. So these politicians will gain all of this power while the middle class is crushed. Look at what's happening in Venezuela. You think socialism really works? And don't give me that, well, it works in Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. Those are mixed economies, just like the United States. They have huge welfare programs, but they're not socialist countries. But the Democrats wanted this story to be true. Again, if they don't have any victims, they don't get any votes. They're not winning elections based upon what they can do for you. They're winning elections based upon how mad and angry they can make you. That's what they do, particularly when it comes to the black community. But we know political correctness forbade all of us from speaking out. We all instinctively knew that Smollett was lying. And now it was just confirmed. But this was just a huge hoax. But we know why. These are the takeaways. Political correctness forbade us from saying anything. Democrats wanted this story to be true. The media wanted this story to be true. But it speaks to an even larger issue. Perhaps, just perhaps, when we look at the stats, maybe America isn't as racist as the Jussie Smolletts or the left claims. And I think that's another thing they fear. You heard Eddie Johnson and you heard other people saying, well, now this is going to cast a bad shadow on real hate crimes. Listen, hate crimes legislation is so stupid. We shouldn't be judging people or criminals based on how they feel. We should be judging them on the actual crime. But it isn't. It isn't going to cast a shadow on that as long as we wait for the evidence and don't jump to conclusions. It's nonsense. It's just nonsense, in my opinion, to say that. But the fact that you have to make up a story like this speaks to the larger issue. America, we're not as racist as this. Why is it that the Democrats have us regressing? For God's sakes, I feel like we're going back to the 1960s. You have Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren arguing for reparations and housing. Haven't you heard of the Community Reinvestment Act? Haven't you heard of affirmative action? Haven't you heard of the 1964 Civil Rights Act? Haven't you heard of the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment? The fact is, everything they are bringing is old stuff, because they want us to feel old feelings that we have already gone through. And this Jussie Smollett incident just speaks to that larger narrative. America isn't as racist as people say. Listen, if you want to hear more from me, make sure you go to my website, carljacksonshow.com. You can find me on Facebook, Carl Jackson Radio. Be sure to include the radio. Follow me on Twitter, @Carl Jackson Show. Until next week, don't grow weary doing good, and God bless you all.